Aloha and welcome. Welcome to ThinkTech. This is part of the ThinkTech series, our show Global Connections, and I'm your host, Carlos Juarez. It gives me great pleasure to welcome a group of Scandinavian students who are here in Hawaii. They're part of a short-term program, the Danish Study Group here, the Danish Study Center here at Hawaii Pacific University. Joining me today, we have two from Denmark and one from Sweden. We're going to have a great conversation, getting some reflections about impressions they've had here in Hawaii, things they've been doing, and talk what kind of perspective do they bring coming from Northern Europe. So joining me today, I'm very excited to welcome each of you. Let me start first in my immediate side here. I'm joined by Henny Jonsson.
Yes.
And Henny, you're from Sweden, correct?
Yes.
Great. And in a moment, I'll have each of you introduce yourselves and tell me more about where you're from. I'm also joined by Christopher Munk from Denmark.
Yeah.
Welcome. Correct. And finally, Christine Dimke is also from Denmark. And thank you all for joining me here. I look forward to a conversation just to learn a little bit more what you've been doing, what your impressions are. And you've come from a very long place. Here you are, 12 time zones from home. But you've been here now for several weeks, and you're part of a group that comes, we've had many of them come here, and you do a combination of cultural studies, learning about, of course, in this case, our culture here, part of American culture and society, but particularly Hawaii. And you also do some improving of your English proficiency, which is already good. You're just improving what you have. But let me turn first and maybe have each of you just say a few words about yourselves, what it is, where you come from, what part of your own country, and maybe what anything else you wish to share. So starting with you, Henny, tell us about yourself.
Okay, I was born in Stockholm, and then I moved up to Dalarna. It's 3 hours above Stockholm.
Okay.
But now I live in Lund, that is very near Denmark.
Okay, so in the southern part of Sweden today.
Exactly, so
nice.
It's a really, it's a student city.
Ah, nice,
so,
nice.
Yeah.
Great, and tell us about yourself then, Christopher.
My name is Christopher. I live in Kolding, a small city in the southern Denmark. I'm going to the university in the northern Denmark now, so just starting when I'm getting home.
You get right back.
Yeah,
yes.
and it's been a super experience to come here to Hawaii to experience this.
Well, very good to hear. Thank you, Christopher. And then Christine?
Yeah, I'm Christine. I live in a small town outside Aarhus. Yeah.
So this is also in the mainland of Denmark,
it is,
the Jutland as it's called.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming, and maybe a few words initially about the program that brought you here. You're part of a Danish study center. However, we do include some Swedes. So really, in many ways, more of a Scandinavian study group. Most of you do come from Denmark. We always have some Swedes just to mix it up a little. But of course, as I said earlier, I mean, you're doing a mixture of things. Some of it is, of course, just an opportunity to really get out of your normal routine, your comfort zone. And I wonder if any of you could share, or each of you, I guess, in your own way, how did you find out about the program, and what is it that interested you? I mean, you could have stayed at home doing whatever, but here you are. So tell us, I mean, how did you come to learn about it, and what interested you, and why?
I know that I wanted to travel, but I think it was a good step to just start with going with a group. And just a combination between school. Well, it's not that much school, but a little school. And just have a vacation and get to know new people. So I think it was a good combination, and Hawaii, it sounds good, so why not?
In the middle of the cold winter, you're thinking, gosh, I could be in Hawaii.
Exactly.
Of course, now in the summer, it's beautiful. You have actually very long days and a long time to enjoy the summers. Tell us about yourselves. I mean, how did you find out about it, and what interested you in the opportunity?
Actually, it was a colleague of mine who had been to a 3-month trip here to Hawaii, to HBU as well. She talked very happily and warmly about it. And I just figured out that if I wanted to go to a college university right away, I had to find something to do in the summer to really get the experience of not going to school.
So something out of the routine, something very different.
It was a super cool adventure to experience the Hawaiian culture as well, and and get a little better at English and stuff at the HBU.
Fantastic. And Christine, anything you can say about your experience and how you came to learn about it?
I always wanted to travel like this. And then I went surfing on my computer, and then it instantly caught my eye, like New York, Hawaii, 1 month. And I just signed up right away, quite spontaneously, actually.
Yeah. And so, as you mentioned, I mean, actually, you begin your journey leaving Denmark and Sweden, and you come to New York City. You spend a week there, very, exciting place, of course, a city that we say never sleeps and has so much activity, people from everywhere, very fast paced, very dynamic. And then you fly from there to Hawaii, a little different here. And I wonder if you might just give us initially, what were some of your impressions when you arrived at the very beginning? And you had some image, some idea. And was it the same, or was it in any way different? What were your initial impressions?
At first it was very warm. It was so hot. But I love New York. I would like to go again, and it's so much to see. And just, I don't know. I think I really like New York.
Excellent. And anything and both Hawaii as well. I mean, any impressions?
It's quite contrasts.
Yeah.
New York is on fire. It's everything's going so fast, and then we take the flight to Hawaii, and it's just like calm down.
Aloha spirit.
Just shaka and hello spirit.
So it is a much more easy, relaxing environment here, and that's quite true, of course. I mean, some of it is the natural beauty, but even as we'll talk about the culture here, there's something about people having a sense of take a deep breath and don't move too quickly.
No hurry.
Enjoy life, and it's not the frantic pace that we often see in big mega cities. Anything else you could add, Christine?
I really like the contrast because New York was so overwhelming. I've never seen anything like that. And I'm not finished with it at all. But now here I'm overwhelmed, like in another way. It's like as beautiful as the pictures, and you always get a bit disappointed when you travel sometimes. But here I'm just,
And of course, I mean, you each obviously have made this move because of your own interest in learning about other places, traveling, as you said. And the important thing, and I think what this particular opportunity gives you, is you're not just traveling, you're not a tourist, you're actually learning about the place. You've done a lot of site visits and getting to know about the history, the culture, and maybe tell us a little bit, what are some of the activities that you have done, some places you visited here, what would any of you can add?
We went to a hike, Coco Head, and we snorkel in, bay?
Perhaps Hanoma Bay.
Yeah, exactly, that one.
So you obviously go outside and see the natural environment.
See the
nature and other activities. I mean, I know you've done...
We've been skydiving, we've been
in the water, in the mountains, in the sky.
And some people have been scuba diving as well, and we've been seeing Honolulu, the city. We've been to Big Island to experience the Lava National Park.
And the rainforest.
It's very... it's a mixture of the environments you experience in Hawaii. So
and I mean, part of it, I mean, it's fun and exciting, but part of it is also you get to really appreciate, this beauty in a way that you realize the people here, and particularly the indigenous culture, is connected to that. We think very carefully about it. We want to preserve that. You can't just overdevelop. And we often have this notion of Hawaii as a place that we resist a lot of development. We don't want just endless, and tourism, very important for us. It is the engine of our economy, but it also puts a lot of pressure on our very fragile ecosystem. So as you learn about the natural beauty, it's one thing, but you then dig a little deeper and you look at the economic engine, you look at the challenges that it presents. It's not easy. You come from, in the case of Denmark, a relatively small country in terms of size and even population, 5 million. Sweden, quite large. You have a lot more open space, a larger population, and as we'll also want to learn a little bit, I mean, obviously very real differences. I mean, Hawaii, of course, is a very multiracial, multi-ethnic society. We have people from all places. Both of you come from more homogeneous societies. Perhaps Sweden is a little different. There's a higher percentage of foreigners that have settled there, but nevertheless, the majority of the people are Scandinavians, from a similar heritage. What is your feeling like coming to a place where suddenly you are the minority? You're just this, small, white European and surrounded by a mixture of people. Does it feel different or?
I think it's fun because then we get many questions. Where are you from? And it's a good way to start a conversation and just because people are curious, they want to know more, and I think that's really fun.
Super friendly in Hawaii.
Yeah.
We have to fit in, but they still they're very interested in us and our culture and where we come from. So it's super nice.
You can feel that you look different, but they're just so friendly, and it doesn't really seem to matter actually. So you can just enjoy it.
So people are open, and of course, part of the culture we have here, people have come from everywhere, so it is a very tolerant and welcoming environment, wherever you might come from. More from Asia, but we have other Europeans that have come. Portuguese have a large heritage here from earlier times, and of course, as back in the 18th, 19th century, we had a lot of whaling industry happening, and there were, in fact, a lot of Norwegians and Russians who came through the islands at that time. So very interesting to see, and of course, the world that we live in, and even yourselves as young Europeans, you live in a world now where there's so much more mobility, and you're able to travel very easily to your own neighboring countries. You have many other foreigners who come to visit your places, and this is a world that's quite different from your grandparents and previous generations, where people tended not to have that flexibility, and I think it speaks well to you that you are part of this now more globally connected culture. I want to talk a little bit about that, and as we move ahead, one of the things I wanted to show, because our listeners, of course, many will know Denmark and Sweden. These are Scandinavian countries in the far northern Europe. And I'd like to maybe, if we can, get a chance to show a quick map that we have that shows the two countries. There's a map of Denmark and Sweden that, if we can get on just here in a moment, we can have a quick look. And what we see is, again, Denmark is connected to, you don't see it in this map particularly, but it's connected to Germany, the continent. And Sweden, on the other hand, is separated. You have a large body of water, the Baltic Sea, and other parts of it that go around. Your other neighbor to the north is Norway. Norway, Denmark, and Sweden really share a lot of similar heritage and history. Scandinavian countries, we often throw in the Finns that are on the other side, but they have, of course, a language that's like from planet Mars, very different. But nevertheless, it's part of the Nordic cultures. And what's fascinating to me is you come from cultures and places where you're surrounded by water. You've got a lot of sort of maritime societies, so you have a long history even in your culture of the sea and the ocean and going out and seeing it. And while you have your unique culture there, you've had also a presence around the world at different times, right? You come to Hawaii, and we are clearly a maritime place surrounded by water. Very interesting. As we move ahead, one of the things I'd like to ask of you is, whenever you visit another place, you look first at the things that are different, and they do things differently here and there, and then you begin to reflect on your own values and your own way of doing things. Why do we do that? Are there any things that either of you could share quickly? I mean, what were some things that you noticed that were just very different from back home, something that caught your attention?
The aloha spirit.
The aloha spirit?
I think that's, and just it's very relaxed with the buses. It's just, it will work out. Take it as it comes.
And this is maybe different from other places where either people are more uptight or demanding or
and get angry if it's 1 minute late. It's a big deal. But here it's just, what you gonna do? Take the next.
It will come. Any other impressions or things like that? Very different.
The way the people are very open. They're very open to have a conversation with you. You wouldn't see that in Scandinavia. People are very closed and not really that willingly to.
A little more reserved with foreigners. Exactly. I mean, now once I can tell you, I've been many times to both of your countries, and once you establish a good rapport and friendship, it's another thing. When you're in somebody's house, when you're part of their inner circle.
It's harder to get close, but once you're close, it's an easier relationship.
And anything else you might add?
Other people call it the Nordic silence.
The Nordic silence.
Yeah, for example, while I'm sitting in the bus, people are quiet and on their cell phones.
Very reserved.
But in other places, it's like they talk to each other and strangers, and it's like different. Like, oh my God, I'm on the bus and everything happens here. When you take the bus at home, you're just on the bus.
You're in your own world.
And
of
but
course,
it's nice here.
Increasingly for us, especially, I've got a number of kids myself. Everybody puts on their little phones and kind of your check out of the world. But it is important. Now, there's another aspect of that, because we have a very openness, and often Americans are thought to be, we just talk, how are you? But sometimes there's a certain either shallowness, or maybe it's not as sincere. And this can sometimes work different ways, because obviously this silence that you describe, or the more reserved, you're kind of waiting to feel somebody out. But once you have that relationship established, then there's a different level of trust. Yeah, very interesting. Well, we're going to move ahead and talk some more. I want us to take a short break right now so our listeners can get a chance to hear about some of our other programming. You're joining us here on Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech Hawaii series, and I'm your host, Carlos Juarez. We're having a great conversation. We're going to continue with a little more. We've got 3 students from Scandinavia, 2 from Denmark, 1 from Sweden. We're joined by Henny, Christopher, and Christine, and come back and join us for more on the conversation.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard, and I host the show Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii digital series right here every Wednesday from 2 to 3 Hawaii time. I would really love to have you watch the show and see what we do here. I talk with some of the most amazing people, artists, most of them, all of them involved in some sort of artistic process. And our goal here on the show is to dig into that artistic process, and you would not believe what some people say, what some people do, what people go through to express. And these are people who have to express somehow, and I find that infinitely interesting. Not only that they have to express, but how they end up doing it. I really hope that you will watch the show and enjoy talking with some of these people the same way that I do. Thanks, and I hope to see you soon on Center Stage on the ThinkTech Hawaii Digital Series, Wednesdays from 2 to 3. See you soon.
And we're back and we're live, and I'm Carlos Juarez, host of the show Global Connections. Here we are in the ThinkTech series. Delighted to be welcoming today 3 students from Scandinavia. 2 of them are from Denmark, Christopher and Christine, and 1 from Sweden, Henny. And they've come all the way from the other side of the planet, from Northern Europe. They've come to join us here in Hawaii for a program of immersion, a cultural studies program, obviously getting out of their normal routine and comfort zone to learn about Hawaiian culture and history, American culture and society, even to improve what are already some good language skills. And one of the things that always fascinates me, we have a lot of students from Europe, from different parts of Asia, but something about the Scandinavian education system that you obviously have a pretty good working knowledge of English. And if you could just maybe tell us briefly, when is it that you begin the study of English language? Because your native language is Danish and Swedish. Yeah. You grow up with that in the house, but at some point you begin to develop it in school.
At my age, it was in 4th grade.
Okay. Elementary.
But yeah, elementary school, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's moved forward, so it's actually already in the 1st grade, the first real year of school. You start having English. We're quite dependent on the English.
Of course, yeah. And particularly Danish, it's a difficult language to both study and to master. But it's also one of those things that keeps you have your little inner circle. And when you can speak it, you've got to, and it's so important for your heritage to maintain who you are, your identity. Anything you would add from Sweden in your perspective?
I started in 2nd grade, but it was more with colors and animals, so nothing more like that.
You are exposed to begin it there. But then at some point it's integrated into your schooling, right?
Yeah, but I think it has most to do with all the TV shows and the programs because it's English everywhere.
That's right. So the popular culture, films, movies, television programs. But I can tell you that in a number of other European countries, quite often places like Italy or France, that they will translate everything into their native language. And while that may be comfortable for them to hear, the other side is that they don't have the exposure quite as much, so their English language will suffer. And we live in a world today where English is the lingua franca, the language that connects you. So if you meet somebody from Portugal or from China or from Africa, English will likely be the language that you're going to understand. And part of this interconnectedness is interesting in your own 2 countries. I mean, you have a long history of even. Gosh, I can't remember it exactly, but I'm probably going to say, help me if I get it wrong, but at one point, parts of what are now southern Sweden used to be Danish. Yeah. I don't want to, put anybody in the wrong. It's okay. That's the past. But the point being that you've obviously had your own borders and maybe territories have shifted and yet you look in the modern period, you now have a clearly defined borders that haven't changed in quite a while. But one of the fascinating things about Denmark and Sweden is that some years ago, I think, let me get the exact figure here. Let me see, there is a bridge that was connecting the 2 now. Gosh, I don't remember the date it was built. We'll confirm that in a moment, but probably in the last 15 years or so, 15 to 20 years. And this is the Øresund Bridge, Øresund. We'll leave it at that. My Danish pronunciation is weak. But the point being, if we can have a map that shows us, this is a fascinating bridge that has really, in some ways, made the 2 countries a lot closer, because in the past you had to do it only by ferries, and that still exists. There's a lot of ferries that move a lot of the people in transport, but this bridge suddenly brought together 2 cities, Copenhagen and Malmö in Sweden, and it's a very short 8 miles, I think 8 kilometers, 5 miles, and it makes a real difference so that today people can live in one country and travel to the other for work and vice versa. And it has just, an example of this growing interconnectedness, much like the channel that connects now the UK into France. You can now just literally drive or take a train that goes right through. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, you've grown up with this connection always there, but do you have any sense of, I don't know, how interconnected your own countries are? You each grow up, at some point, do most Danes go to Sweden? Do most Swedes go to Denmark? Or is it just depend on where you live and what your activities are?
I think it goes both ways. A lot of Danes go to vacation and stuff in Sweden as well, and shopping as well, actually, because at some points it's cheaper to shop in Sweden. So it's even for shopping, we might go across the border.
However, and I can attest to this, the Swedes come over to Denmark to buy alcohol.
It happens.
And
not me,
partly because Sweden has a very tight control over where you can buy it, and they tax it even higher. So I can remember driving over that border. One of the first stops is to the liquor store and just fill up your trunk with all the goodies.
We drive to Germany.
To buy even cheaper, of course. And I'm guessing here you're describing going there because Sweden is a larger market. They might have big shops that have some things that are better priced. And I wonder beyond that, just if you can talk a little bit about the youth culture, because you're part of this new generation, and I'm talking about you're interconnected. But what is in your mind? What does it mean to be a young Dane or a young Swede? And maybe more specifically, to me, you are Europeans, and that's a broad term, of course. But in your own sense, you're obviously Danes, you're Swedes, you have this other identity. But talk a little bit about what it means in your mind today, here we are in 2014, to be a young Dane, a young European. Do you see it as or maybe let me stick to just this idea of identity. What do you feel yourself? Do you feel more your national identity? Do you see yourself, when you're here telling people where you're from, as a European? What would you say?
I think Scandinavian.
Scandinavian?
Yeah, because European is so wide.
Yeah.
But often people don't recognize when you say Denmark. They're like, Germany? No, Denmark.
Not quite.
It's quite small.
Values are quite similar across the three countries.
So there's a Scandinavian sort of culture that is very similar. And when you say Scandinavia, people, okay, I've heard of that. It's somewhere up there in the north. Anything you might add? Or
no, I agree.
And of course, again, I go back to this, and you touched on it briefly by describing how you grow up in a world where you're exposed to a lot of culture, American culture on the one hand, but even other European culture. As Danes, you border Germany, so you've got exposure to a lot of what happens there, and that's it's a large country, a large economy, and all. Very good football, soccer teams that of course become popular. What else could you add about, again, just this world of being from Northern Europe?
The countries in Northern Europe are quite small, so we are very dependent on the world around us. For example, we're already from 4th or 6th grade, depending on where you are from, you start having German in Denmark.
So you need to have some exposure to the neighboring languages, right? And you mentioned how, as small states, basically your economies are very highly dependent on trade and on, obviously, you can't produce everything you need in your small country, so you have to have a sort of a trading nation, so to speak. Both of you come from places that have a lot of variety. Sweden being a larger place, somewhat more industrialized and known for maybe you can help me with this, but of course you export a lot of vehicles and other machines and manufactured goods, furniture, and actually both of you, but the famous IKEA stores, we see them all over the U.S. and people
with the meatballs,
with the famous Swedish meatballs, and yet interestingly, Denmark is one of the major producers of furniture, but it's more the craft of doing the machinery, not the machinery, the product. You have to bring the wood and the materials, often from probably Poland and other parts of mainland Europe, but it's a certain skill. Denmark, what other things does your country produce? There's
Lego.
Legos, of course, the little toys.
And we are transportation.
Yes, of course, the shipping. Maersk is the big shipping company that makes it a real worldwide operation. The other thing, of course, is pork. I mean, you are the king of pork. You produce more ham and canned hams and bacon and as well as other dairy products, famous butter and cheeses. And then we can't forget those little tin cookies that come out every year. There must be millions of those produced every year. And so again, part of your heritage is understanding, what your role is in the region and in the larger global community. And what I find fascinating is, we have students that come here to Hawaii from all over, and everybody experiences some level of culture shock. But I want to say that in general, the Scandinavians seem to do pretty well. They adapt well, and there's a certain, I wouldn't know if it's easygoing or there's a certain adaptability maybe. And that's not always the case. Other people coming from different countries, wherever it might be, often experience more challenges. Do you have any sense of what might account for that?
I think we just expect this, like in Denmark, when I've told people I'm going to Hawaii, they're like, oh, you're going to paradise. So it's like, we want to live that way, I think, when we're here. So it's not like a shock, it's more like a good feeling you get.
The acceptance of it. And anything you might say again to
That's a tradition for having a lot of spare time, even when you're a worker. You work very little when you're in Denmark and have a very high wage considering other countries.
Sure.
So that you have this tradition of relaxing, so it's not that unsimilar to the Hawaiian aloha lifestyle.
And so actually, maybe another way to put it is that, the quality of life you have, you put a lot of, I guess, good focus and energy into enjoying, that time when you're not working. So you work, and because of the high value and the, high standard of living you have, it allows you to enjoy, the vacation or the time away. And instead of having a super stressful world in which you're working 80, 90 hours a week, no vacation time, that would be very different. Instead, it's this other quality. And again, I think it's the resourcefulness that today we see a lot more mobility of students like yourselves who can kind of move around. And the reality is that once you see the world and you see other places, it changes you. It makes you both more inquisitive. You want to learn more about it. It's hard to not. And we often say that when you do these type of study abroad or educational exchange programs, they're transformational experiences. And I don't know if you've had any other previous experiences, but just from your recent one here now, would you, or how would you say that this type of experience transforms your life, your way of thinking, and you're no longer the same person? Can you speak to that?
I think I've gone up my comfort zone, and just by being here, and just skydive, because I'm afraid of heights.
So you just overcome it.
It isn't a normal combination to just jump out of an airplane, but only here in Hawaii, so why not? No.
And so, when you do that, and what else could you add? Again, how...
In general, it's about stretching your comfort zone. Bringing out where you're not usually, and getting these new experiences, and just developing yourself as a person, getting more mature.
Yes.
I think it's the feeling of being able to do so much more than you knew you could. You feel like, okay, I can do these things, and I can do it on my own, and
So you push the limits, you get out of, you say, this comfort zone, and the fact is, all of us get into the same routine, the same world, and if that's all you do and all you know, at some point, you're sort of stuck. You're not really pushing yourself. And so I think it's fair to say it's important, and not everybody has the luxury of, going to the other side of the world, but, you do need to find ways to get out of your normal, level, and then to push yourselves. And again, you're young adults who obviously, you're coming out of growing up in your house, and now you're independent, you're making your own choices, and that's exciting, but it's also, it carries a little risk. You want to make sure you make choices that are good ones, and I know you all have by coming here, but it's a great opportunity again to push yourselves and to test. You wouldn't jump out of a plane back home, but hey, suddenly you've done it,
it's okay.
and now you feel a different level of confidence. Well, thank you for sharing that. And as we come back, we'll continue a dialogue. I want to talk a little bit, maybe about where you go from here, and what are some of your own interests as you move back, and you have to readjust and have your own culture shock going back to the world that you come from. But that's the reality. But you come back as new people, sort of redefined. So we'll come back and continue this conversation. Joining me today are three Scandinavians that are here in Hawaii. We're joined by Christine, Christopher, and Henny from Sweden, Denmark, and they're part of a cultural studies program that brings them all the way from Europe here to Hawaii. Stay tuned, join us for more on the conversation as we come back. Aloha.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha, we're back and we're live, and I'm your host, Carlos Juarez. This is Global Connections, part of the ThinkTech Hawaii series. And joining me today are three Scandinavians, young adults who are here, part of a cultural studies program at Hawaii Pacific University. Christopher and Christine coming from Denmark, and Henny from Sweden. And thank you again for coming and joining me today for a great conversation. We've been just learning a little bit about what brought you out here, some reflections on what you've been doing and your impressions. And as you look to the future, now you're finishing the program here in Hawaii. You've had a great opportunity to take a break from your routine, your comfort zone. You're going to be at some point soon jet back into your world. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's a it's a comfortable life and all, but moreover, you will have obviously other opportunities as you move into your professional interests, your studies. And I wonder if you might just say briefly, where some of your interest lies. What are your plans as you go back? Are you some of your starting university or continuing? And what are your interests? What do you think you're hoping to do? And where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years from now? Henny. All the answers. So,
yeah, exactly. I'm going to study weather and climate.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But I don't know if that is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But we will see. No hurry.
Excellent. Very good. And yourself?
I'm pretty straightforward. It's business law and business economics. Probably going abroad again a couple of times and having a semester or two abroad as well. And where I'm going from there, I'm not quite sure, but probably not Denmark either.
Yeah, you'll open some new doors, some opportunities. But again, I would certainly say you're going to always have your roots there, your family, or you can't remove that Danishness. It'll always be there. And yet we live in a world where, gosh, it's all there for you to explore and to find
some values inside of me. It's not where I live.
That's right. Very good. And Christine?
Yeah, I'm going to study Nordic language and literature.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Very nice. So it help kind of keep yourself grounded, understand the place you are part of.
You actually get to know about all the literature all around the world. You just compare it to your own culture in Scandinavia.
Excellent. Oh, very good. And perhaps you'll find yourself either teaching or deepening or perhaps even writing yourself at some point. Excellent. Very good.
I'm not sure where it takes me, but it's what I like to do. So.
And the critical thing here is you've got to go where your passions lie, something that's going to keep you focused and engaged. And we live in worlds where there's so many things changing so quickly that you don't know what's going to open up for you in 2 years, in 5 years. And so you have to just go with your passion, what you're interested in doing. And you come from places where fortunately you have opportunities to further that. Your education is free, although you shouldn't say free. You pay high taxes, but that's what you get in exchange. We often joke that, of course, Scandinavia is a place where taxation rates are very high, and they are, but it's part of the social safety net, part of the welfare societies that you have there, and in exchange, you don't have to worry about, can I go to the, well, you have to do good grades to get into the good schools and all, but nevertheless, it's one less thing to worry about. You can kind of just focus on what you want to do. But clearly, this type of experience is one that I said earlier, it's transformational, so that you've come this far. This is a pretty adventurous thing to do, and it will open up your confidence to try next time to do something else, something different. In the near term, do you have any other plans of travel? I know you're going back, but any goals or interests that you might want to pursue, or wait until you see?
Yeah, I would like to go. I would like to stay here longer. I don't want to go home yet. But I would like to take one semester in another country.
Yeah, as part of your studies, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent, and you said yourself also that you expect to continue.
Specifically, I'm going to Budapest in Ungarn,
nice.
Hungary,
yes.
in a couple of days when I get home.
Fantastic.
But after that, it's going to be a couple of semesters abroad and stuff. So
nice.
Well,
have you been to Hungary?
Not yet. It's the first time. So
I just arrived about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
I was in Budapest, and in fact, the show Global Connections, we did a live one, Skyping from there. 2 in the morning. It was 2 in the afternoon here. A great place. And one of the things, actually, I was even saying this on my show. I'll send you the link. That this is the place to be. There's so much dynamism and activity. Lots of people, again, Europeans, Americans, other foreigners are there, and it's one of the parts of Europe that's really kind of opening and transforming very quickly.
I'm actually going there with the Conservative Youth Political Party. And,
excellent. And meet other people there. Good for you. And anything you would share? I mean, that's on your horizon.
I hope to travel much more.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. I'd like to see more of America as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know where exactly I'm going next.
You'll wait and see the next step.
Now I have to start my studies.
Excellent. Great. And so again, we've got 2 students from Denmark, 1 from Sweden. And as we finish our show today, I mean, again, we've had a chance to reflect on different things. I wonder, if you might add just a few closing thoughts on, parting words on what you take away. I mean, you've kind of reflected on some of this already, but what are the things that you think you're going to, bring back from this? I mean, maybe it's a little bit of the Aloha spirit, but beyond that, maybe it's just a better understanding from, what you initially thought, or anything that you could say that you might share with people when you return?
I think that when you get back home and your everyday life starts, that's very nice, but sometimes you get stuck. Yeah. You can just remember that, okay, the world is so much more than where you are.
Because we get caught up in our immediate here now. It's part of it, but you take a step back and say, well, you know what, it's a big world out there, and it's not as, it doesn't have to be as difficult as you might face. Anything else you might add?
This open-mindedness we've experienced here, I will probably try and take that with me.
Excellent. Yeah. And again, it's part of that experience. I mean, you've come here to see that there are different views, different values. Exactly. And we talk about our own Hawaiian culture, which is, it's this mixture, but it is also that. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you have to contribute to it, take away from it as well. Anything you could add?
Just that you said open-minded and be more comfortable with talking to strangers and just be open-minded.
Excellent. Very good. Well, I just want to thank the 3 of you. You've come and had a very good experience here. I know you'll return with a little piece of Hawaii, and hopefully not the last visit here ever.
Nope.
We will be here, and of course there are opportunities, and maybe your business will bring you here, your literature, you can find
reunion,
some way.
I think.
Coming back, and you've tried most things here, but there'll always be something you can either do again or follow up on. And I've been fortunate to travel several times to Sweden and Denmark, countries that I've really enjoyed, and partly it's the very orderly and organized society. I've always, particularly in the case of Denmark, I was like, gosh, they always think of every little thing, and there's this certain comfort that you have there, and with Sweden, it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's this very. I mean, it's more the Scandinavian, let's say. There's just a sense that a lot of thought has been put into certain things and taking care of the little things, so that you have a certain level of comfort there. And maybe my heritage is from Mexico, and I also love going to Italy and Spain, great countries, but they're more chaotic and unpredictable and not as organized. There's a nice comfort level in that too, because it's unpredictable. But your world is one that kind of you see that you've taken care of things very well, and so I'm grateful again to hear these insights from you, and I thank you for sharing some of what you've learned in your visits here. This is our show, Global Connections, and as always, what we try to do is connect the world to Hawaii, as we've done here, but we also bring Hawaii to the world. And these students are, in effect, cultural ambassadors. They're returning home, reflecting the values and insights they've gained from here, but they also return as new, blossoming, more confident, more open. And so this is part of what we do here. We connect people in Global Connections. I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us. And as always, you can come back and find any of our shows here saved as podcasts or YouTube, and many of our other shows. Get all of our links at thinktechhawaii.com. and thanking all those who made it possible. Particularly glad Zuri is in the house as our stage manager, helping to make everything run smoothly. Ian in the back room with all the technical things, and Chrissy Goffigan, our communications director, and of course Jay Fidel, who brings it all together in his role as head of the ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm your host, Carlos Juarez, and for Global Connections, thank you again for joining us. Aloha.